Well, the biggest night on the film industry's calendar came last night as the annual Academy Awards were presented in Hollywood. Birdman was the big winner of the evening, taking the major categories of Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Theory of Everything's Eddie Redmayne took Best Actor. Still Alice's Julianne Moore won Best Actress. J.K. Simmons won Best Supporting Actor for his role in Whiplash, while Boyhood's Patricia Arquette took Best Supporting Actress. Two significant upsets saw Imitation Game win for Best Adapted Screenplay and Big Hero 6 for Best Animated Film. John, your thoughts on the Oscars last night?
Well, I mean, for what the Oscars is to me, it's awesome because the Oscars is a celebration of the year that was in film. And while even a lot of the times, a lot of the people who I thought should have won didn't win, all great winners, all deserving winners, like even though they weren't all necessarily my picks, across the board, very deserving, and it was a great celebration of film. The problem with the Oscars, and this was really highlighted, I thought, last night, and we'll get into the winners and the losers in a second, is that they have yet to figure out how to put on a good show. You know, and look, I'm one of these guys, I don't tune into the Oscars to be entertained. I can watch a million films and television shows and listen to be entertained, that's fine. I watch the Oscars because of the opening of the envelope and the celebration of films and the in memoriam. That's why I watch the Oscars. But hey, if you're going to have a 3.5-hour show, why not put in a little bit of effort and actually make it entertaining at the same time? And once again, I felt like they failed to make it an entertaining show. That's not what's important to me, so I don't get really worked up about it. But, you know, and the Neil Patrick Harris thing, I was so happy when they announced that he was going to be the host. So happy. Just flat. I mean, there was nothing he did that was a disaster. It was all just flat and unfunny. Maybe one or two good little jokes here and there. Anyway, so that's my feelings on the show part of it. We'll talk a little bit more about the ins and outs of the winners and stuff like that, but your guys' impressions of the show overall.
I mean, the show for me, it's like you said, I was actually excited that Neil Patrick Harris was doing it as well, and coming from his experience on stage, and it was going to be a lot of fun. And the opening act actually seemed like it was going to be a lot of fun, and I think Ellis said it yesterday too. Okay, we're in for a good ride here, and then it just fell flat, like you said. It just made me thank God that the DVR was invented. So you could fast forward to just get to the parts that you wanted to see. The overall show just didn't work, and I thought there were certain things, and there are ways to cut time, because like what they're doing in baseball, they're trying to find ways to make the game go faster.
Yeah.
Find a way to make this show go faster, and whether it's you're cutting some time from the president of the Academy, that's just for the audience there. Whether it's if you find that a joke is not going well, like that joke that he kept going back to the box thing, cut it. You know, have your writers in the back go, this isn't working. Let's cut it down. Let's trim it down. Just get to it. Spend more time on the winners. There wasn't much time spent for Best Picture, and they're rushing people off the stage that we want to see and spending time on silly jokes that aren't working. That's the show part of it. And I thought that the musical acts, and I know that you're not a big fan of having the musical numbers in the show, but I thought they were the breath of fresh air of the show last night. And when everyone was falling asleep, Lady Gaga comes out and crushes it. Who would have thought she was going to... I mean, for me, she shows up and I'm cracking jokes. Oh, she looks like a villain in Snowpiercer 2. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this to be a disaster. And I shut my mouth from the second she opened her mouth. She stole the show last night.
Her second syllable, the hill. As soon as she hit the hills,
everyone in the room was just like,
hell?
wow. Like, she crushed it. So I thought that the music actually helped the show last night. That part of the show worked for me.
Someone online mentioned Hugh Jackman, and I was like, yeah, why don't they bring him back?
Yeah.
I mean, because he's a really a very fun entertainer, and there's nothing wrong with Neil Patrick Harris. I just think he was off. All of his energy was off, the timing was off. Like, literally, I came in at the last 30 minutes, not kidding, and was equally probably just as bored as you guys, but you had to endure a full 3 extra hours of it than I did. So the pageantry of the Oscars is something that you watch for, you know, oh, who's wearing what, and the stars and this and that. But I think they've got to figure out a better way for a delivery system of, hey, here's the awards, let the people talk, that's why we're watching it. And then figure out some fun things for us to see while in between that, you know?
Yeah, and look, and you're right, just to mention the music thing again, I'm not a fan of the Oscars taking up a lot of time with music. Here's an interesting little factoid. The Best Actress category last night at the Oscars, clearly one of the major awards, right? Had 3 minutes and 20 seconds dedicated to it of screen time. Best Actress. Best Song from a Movie had over 14 minutes of screen time. this is a simple issue of give more time to what's important. Okay, I mean, it's just that simple. The Lady Gaga number was probably the highlight of the whole show. It really was. And when I found out it was a part of celebrating the anniversary of one of the most celebrated films of all time, then I kind of went, okay, because if you follow me on Twitter, at first I was like, why are they having Lady Gaga come out to sing a song just about some random old movie, although an all-time classic? Then somebody reminded me that it was actually celebrating the 50th anniversary, and I'm like, okay. And then even she just
Julie
blew us
Andrews
away.
came out.
Yeah,
Julie
that was
Andrews
cool.
came out. It was very special. That was celebrating film, you know? But yeah, once it comes down to, hey, Best Director got 2 minutes and 58 seconds of screen time at the Oscars. Best Song got 14 plus minutes of screen dedication. They got to find ways to pare it down. They've got to find ways to pare it down and get to the stuff that we want to see.
Well, they should turn it into like an actual show, meaning like, you know, have like a script with a character like that someone's playing with. Neil Patrick Harris plays someone in the beginning, has like a theme that goes throughout it, you know, and like it's an actual show and you're entertaining. You throw a musical number in there where maybe he pops in and he's singing with, I think Robin Williams did that back in the day when he was singing with everyone in the back.
Death of an Oscars salesman.
But whatever it is, so they're getting these actors and they're getting comedians to do it. Like, play into the movies, play into the themes of it, and make it a show instead of just trying bad jokes. And then he's making fun of the people, the seat fillers, embarrassing them. They were grasping at straws on how to fill time, and that's
Steve
why
Carell saved that one spot with one line. Carell saved that bit.
Absolutely, and I think that the reason, as far as the music, why they have that in there and why there's so much time, because if you take out all those out of there, it is a complete dud. It wakes people up, even if they shouldn't be in there. And I agree with you that that's maybe too much time. But for the producers of the show, they're saying, we need to wake people up. Play another song, because that's what's going to happen.
What about this? What about a 5 to 6 minute medley of here are the nominees for Best Song this year, and they each perform like 1 minute and 30 seconds of their song, and you get like 6 minutes instead of it taking up like 14 or 15 minutes. That could be a way to do it too.
But Christian nailed it, because you spread that out. That's like that, what, waking people up from
Billy
their
Crystal
sleeping.
made a show out of it.
Right,
it's true.
When Billy Crystal would host it, he made a show out of it.
It needs to be a show. It needs to be something you tune in to watch it. Like, oh, what are they going to do this year? It's going to be crazy. It's not just like trying to find a host that's not going to bore people to tears. That's what it is.
Well, let's actually talk about some of the winners.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the important stuff about the Oscars. The film I hoped was going to win, Birdman, took Best Picture. I was starting to wonder if because earlier in the day, I started watching some of these shows, and some of these TV shows are saying now the odds-on favorite in Vegas is actually Boyhood to win. I'm like, Boyhood wasn't in my top 3, although I was happy it was nominated. It wasn't in my top 3. I'm like, oh, come on, Birdman. But then once the dominoes started to fall, Birdman won for cinematography, then Birdman won for screenplay, and then Birdman won for director. And then it's like, okay, this is clear which way it was going. I was really happy, so I was thrilled with that. I was disappointed that Eddie Redmayne won, although I'm not outrageously disappointed that he won over Michael Keaton, because he was my number 2 pick. So if he's my number 2 pick, I can't really complain that he ended up winning. I would have preferred to have seen Michael Keaton win that award. I thought his performance in Birdman, not quite as good as from There Will Be Blood. Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in There Will Be Blood. But I actually thought it was one of the top 5 male lead performances we've seen in the last 5 years. Yeah. I thought it was really solid. Julianne Moore, no-brainer. Patricia Arquette was a no-brainer. J.K. Simmons, no-brainer. But say, look, how cool is it that J.K. Simmons is now an Academy Award winner? I think that's awesome. Some great speeches last night. I keep forgetting the gentleman's name, but the writer for the Imitation Game.
Moore?
Yeah, Moore. I thought which Ray put on the picture here, just probably the most important speech of the night. I thought his speech was incredible. J.K. Simmons' speech was fantastic. Alejandro's speech was fantastic.
Patricia
Arquette's speech was really good. Just really some really great moments on stage. And what stood out to you guys about last night?
I was going to say, just thinking about the way Birdman kind of dominated, yet every single other picture got a little flavor. Whiplash, Boyhood, Theory of Everything. Every single one of those films, somebody won something for it, yet overwhelmingly Birdman was the winner. It won for a lot of the technical aspects, as well as cinematography, as well as directing and writing, and Best Picture. So that's everything. So in a sense, we were talking about this yesterday, Michael Keaton did win because he is Birdman. It's an ensemble piece, so everyone in the film, all the actors kind of won in general when it wins Best Picture.
And at that point, that Schnepp just made, it really shows the conversation we had before the Oscars yesterday. This was one of the tightest in all of the categories, the races. I mean, there were so many times beforehand, like normally in the big categories, when you're filling out those pools, you can say, okay, that's pretty, I guess 5 or 6 of them you know are going to, who's going to win. You just know. There were so many around the horn last night. You're like, I don't know if that one's gonna hit. I mean, even Big Hero 6 winning was like,
that was a big surprise.
Yeah, I know a lot of people wanted that one to win, but everyone thought once Lego was knocked out, it was.
And especially once How to Train Your Dragon 2 won the Annie Award for Best Animated Film, a lot of people thought, well, that's a foregone conclusion. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is going to win the Oscar.
Right, and I agree with you. I thought some of the speeches were really great last night, and Patricia Arquette, I mean, got to be a career highlight that when you're giving that powerful speech that you have Meryl Streep get out of her seat and go like that. Like, that's got to be a career highlight, right? And so that was a big speech. J.K. Simmons, like you said, and I think that for me, Eddie Redmayne winning, if you compare the two of them, who I like more as an actor or celebrity, it's Michael Keaton. He was a stand-up comic at the Comedy Store, which is where I grew as a comedian, and I've loved him forever. I just thought Eddie Redmayne did something, had maybe the career performance he's ever going to have. I've seen that movie twice, and the way he transforms, it's not just because he's playing a guy with, I know everyone kind of makes the joke, oh, he's just because he played a guy with a disease, he played a guy with a disability, that's why they gave it to him. It's not, because it was such a human performance of what he did, and the way that he encompassed Stephen Hawking. He transcended just the disease. He did so much more with that character and showed you what he was as a man before he got it, and the relationship he had with Felicity Jones and everything, and you learned so much about Stephen Hawking through Eddie Redmayne's interpretation. And that's why I just thought that Michael Keaton was amazing, incredible. And if he would have won, I wouldn't have complained about it. But I just thought Eddie Redmayne this year deserved it.
That is the tip of the hat for the Academy to be like, look, Birdman's sweeping everything. We got to give it up a little bit. Otherwise, it's just like, why are we watching this show? Birdman won everything.
And it's not a big surprise because at the SAG Awards, Eddie Redmayne also got Best Actor at the SAG Awards, but the Best Ensemble, which is kind of like their top award, went to Birdman.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, though, out of all the major awards that Birdman won, shut out in the acting categories. So that was interesting. But you're right, it was a really nice diversity. A couple of quick things, though. Following a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people were complaining about the in memoriam thing, that, where was Philip Seymour Hoffman? Where was Harold Ramis? Where was it? 9 out of 10, though, we were just talking about this before, those were all actually people that were covered in last year's in memoriam. The only kind of question mark that went up was with Joan Rivers. And actually, we were sitting watching it live, and somebody in our group said, oh, Joan Rivers will probably be the last one. And I said, I don't think they're going to have Joan Rivers in this. She's not really known as a movie personality. She was in a couple of movies, but she wasn't a movie personality. Because I think they honored her at the Emmys. If I'm not, somebody told me they honored her at the Emmys. I'm not really sure, which would have been more appropriate. And they didn't have. So some people are saying that Joan Rivers should have been in there. I didn't think so. Not because she wasn't great and a monument in the industry. It's just that wasn't her area of the industry.
She's more of a personality and not an actress.
Yeah, that's just the way I saw it.
But they cover, as far as that point, I mean, they cover editors and screenplay. I mean,
sure, but she wasn't really.
Well, yeah, I know,
either.
but I mean, I'm saying but what she did as far as being an entertainer and as far as covering the Oscars for all the years that she did, she was a big voice on the Oscars. I thought she should have been attributed because she had such a presence there.
Sure.
And if for me, if you're going to honor a producer, I know they've had producers of the Oscar telecast in general, and working on that show, if you're going to honor someone like that, which you should have, I think Joan Rivers should have got a nod because of the entertainer she was and because of the presence she did have at the Oscar celebration.
Last other thing that's got a little bit of controversy around it was the Best Visual Effects Award. Ended up going. One of the few picks I made on my Oscar ballot that I actually got right. I did pick Interstellar to win. Of course, I've made the argument too that Apes had a really, 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 really strong thing. And we were talking about this last night, and a lot of things. I picked Interstellar, but I still kind of felt like Apes should win. But to me, and I said this last night, it felt like Apes and Interstellar, when you look at them, these are two films, and you can't say this often, even about great visual effect films. The visual effects in both of these films were flawless, like completely flawless. And therefore, I had no complaint about either one of them winning. But I will say this about Interstellar. Interstellar had a wider scope of effects. So it wasn't just a few things they did really, really well. They engaged in no green screen in it. All this other type of stuff. They built all these, their visual effects went beyond computer visual effects. And they did a whole lot more different types of visual effects in the thing. I'm not saying that makes it deserve it more than Apes. I just think that played into it when a lot of these people were looking at the award and how to dole it out. But I had no complaints either way. I know you felt pretty strongly about Apes needing to win it. Your thoughts on Interstellar getting it?
Well, it's funny because when we did our Oscar predictions for AMC, I said Interstellar was going to win, and it was actually Schnepp and Dennis that started making me think about, and Schnepp had said it too, is that the really good visual effects are the ones that make you forget they're even there. And granted, Interstellar absolutely does that, but you're watching real apes for 2 hours and 15 minutes. You're watching real apes, and they're talking. And you're like, wait, that, and they didn't use a lot of green screen in that movie. They used some, but they shot in the forest. It was the first time really that Performance Capture did that. They were furthering the technology. They were furthering the effects. And what they have done, and we talked about this last night, was that considering that you are even talking about Andy Serkis being nominated, some people say, oh, he was snubbed. Some people said, hey, he's not ready yet. But you're talking about him. You're talking about a character in Performance Capture because of this technology is so strong and has come such a long way. I just think that it just furthered the game and it should have been recognized. But Interstellar was an accomplishment all in itself. So I can't really complain about it too much, but I was bummed.
Well, I mean, it was nominated, so it was recognized. I mean,
I'm recognized as far as them.
Sure.
To me, it's just saying the Academy giving it to them is the Academy saying, "Oh, we understand this now."
I think the Academy picking Interstellar is simply impact. Like we were saying, effects being invisible is the true best special effect, that you can't see out the edge of something or it looks fake or whatnot, which Dawn did amazingly well. You couldn't tell that these creatures weren't real, and at one time there were dudes with a bunch of dots on them with a weird stuff, and they replaced all that. But to me, Interstellar, I think why it won, though I would have picked Apes, but why I think the Academy went with Interstellar is because of the impact that Interstellar had visually. Granted, the story fell apart at the end, and there's weaknesses, the piano and all that stuff, but the impact that Christopher Nolan's vision, his ability to make you feel like you're in outer space in a different way that 2001 did. Like a lot of people were using comparisons to 2001. They're there as a tip of the hat, as a nod that Nolan did as another auteur to another. I think, but his interpretation of being in outer space was scary. Was like, oh my God, when McConaughey launched out by himself and he's just floating and there's that weird ice stuff hitting him. That's something I'd never seen before, an interpretation of being in outer space that was refreshingly new and different. So I think that impact and using without using green screen, making the actors be part of that, all this, as much as being live, shooting live as possible. I think that's why that it tipped the scales, I think, as opposed to the Apes, flawless, the special effects flawless, but emotionally Interstellar wins visually.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.